One of the most noticeable strange patterns is the way intimacy often feels extremely intense at the beginning and strangely hollow over time. Many narcissistic individuals appear highly magnetic early in connection. They may shower attention, affirmation, charm, admiration, and emotional presence. The closeness can feel accelerated, as if there is instant chemistry or destiny. The partner may feel uniquely seen, desired, or special. Internally, this intensity is fueled by novelty and reward activation in the brain. New attention provides strong stimulation, validation, and identity reinforcement. The nervous system feels energized and stabilized temporarily. Over time, however, the novelty wears off. The emotional charge decreases. The narcissist's internal restlessness returns. Instead of deepening emotional intimacy, they often lose interest, become distracted, emotionally unavailable, critical, or detached. The partner may feel confused by the sudden shift from intensity to emotional distance. What felt like passion may have been regulation hunger rather than relational bonding. 5. Weird sexual habits of a narcissist often sounds provocative at first glance, but the word weird in this context does not refer to shock value or explicit behavior. It refers to patterns that feel confusing, contradictory, emotionally disorienting, and psychologically inconsistent when compared to healthy intimacy. Many people who have been close to narcissistic personalities describe a strange mix of intensity and emptiness, attraction and discomfort, closeness and distance, validation and invisibility. What looks like desire on the surface often functions as something entirely different beneath the surface. Regulation, power, identity reinforcement, emotional control, and nervous system stabilization. Sex and healthy relational development is an extension of emotional safety, mutual attunement, trust, vulnerability, and reciprocity. It deepens connection rather than replaces it. In narcissistic structures, however, intimacy often becomes disconnected from emotional bonding and instead becomes a tool the nervous system uses to regulate internal instability. The behaviors that emerge can feel puzzling because they are not driven primarily by affection or connection, but by psychological needs the narcissists themselves may not consciously recognize. One of the most noticeable strange patterns is the way intimacy often feels extremely intense at the beginning and strangely hollow over time. Many narcissistic individuals appear highly magnetic early in connection. They may shower attention, affirmation, charm, admiration, and emotional presence. The closeness can feel accelerated, as if there is instant chemistry or destiny. The partner may feel uniquely seen, desired, or special. Internally, this intensity is fueled by novelty and reward activation in the brain. New attention provides strong stimulation, validation, and identity reinforcement. The nervous system feels energized and stabilized temporarily. Over time, however, the novelty wears off. The emotional charge decreases. The narcissist's internal restlessness returns. Instead of deepening emotional intimacy, they often lose interest, become distracted, emotionally unavailable, critical, or detached. The partner may feel confused by the sudden shift from intensity to emotional distance. What felt like passion may have been regulation hunger rather than relational bonding. Another strange pattern is how validation often matters more than connection. In healthy intimacy, the emotional experience of mutual presence and care is the reward. For narcissistic systems, the reward often lies in being desired, admired, envied, pursued, or emotionally impactful rather than in shared closeness. Compliments, attention, responsiveness, and affirmation can carry more psychological weight than genuine emotional exchange. The narcissist may appear preoccupied with how they are perceived, how attractive or impressive they appear, how much influence or impact they generate. Moments that reinforce their desirability or power feel emotionally satisfying, even if the relational bond remains shallow. When validation drops, interest may drop as well. This can make partners feel objectified or emotionally unseen despite physical closeness or romantic gestures. A third strange habit is the tendency to mix control with intimacy. For some narcissistic personalities, closeness activates vulnerability and loss of control, which can feel threatening to their nervous system. To stabilize themselves, they may unconsciously introduce power dynamics, emotional leverage, jealousy games, unpredictability, or subtle dominance into the relationship. Intimacy becomes intertwined with who has more influence, who initiates, who withholds, who reacts more, or who feels more invested. This can create emotional tension rather than safety. The partner may feel they are constantly adjusting, proving, pleasing, or stabilizing the connection, while the narcissist unconsciously feeds on the sense of impact and control. What appears as confidence or charisma can actually mask a fear of equal vulnerability. Another pattern that often feels strange is the fluctuation between closeness and withdrawal without clear explanation. The narcissistic nervous system struggles with emotional consistency. When closeness feels stimulating and validating, they may lean in. When closeness triggers vulnerability, dependency, or emotional exposure, they may suddenly pull away. This push-pull dynamic can feel confusing and destabilizing for partners who may try to make sense of the inconsistency through self-blame or over-adaptation. The narcissist may not consciously understand why their interest fluctuates. Internally, the nervous system is oscillating between craving stimulation and avoiding vulnerability. This creates cycles of pursuit and retreat, rather than steady relational growth. A fifth strange habit is the tendency to seek novelty even when stability is available. Novel attention often activates stronger reward responses than familiar connection. New people, new environments, new admiration, and new emotional reactions stimulate dopamine more intensely than predictable intimacy. For narcissistic systems wired around stimulation rather than safety, novelty can feel emotionally alive while stability feels dull or restrictive. This can manifest as restlessness, distraction, or chronic dissatisfaction, even in relationships that are objectively healthy. The individual may unconsciously sabotage stability to regain stimulation. This does not always mean physical infidelity or overt behavior. It can also appear as excessive attention-seeking, emotional triangulation, or constant comparison. The nervous system prioritizes stimulation over depth. What makes these patterns particularly confusing is that they are rarely conscious strategies. The narcissist often experiences these behaviors as natural impulses, preferences, chemistry, or personality traits rather than as regulation patterns. Because the behaviors sometimes produce external success, admiration, or social reinforcement, the underlying dysfunction remains hidden. The individual may genuinely believe they are simply passionate, selective, independent, or misunderstood rather than dysregulated. These patterns also deeply affect partners and observers. Many people enter narcissistic relationships feeling chosen, energized, and deeply connected at first. Over time, however, emotional confusion, insecurity, self-doubt, and exhaustion often emerge. The partner may struggle to reconcile the early intensity with later emotional distance. They may chase closeness, attempt to restore the original connection, or internalize responsibility for the narcissist's fluctuations. This creates a trauma bond where hope and disappointment become intertwined. The nervous system of the partner can become conditioned to instability, making calm relationships feel unfamiliar or emotionally flat afterward. Understanding these strange sexual and relational habits through a psychological lens helps dissolve personalization. The behaviors are not primarily about the partner's worth, attractiveness, or adequacy. They are expressions of how the narcissistic nervous system regulates itself. The partner is not the cause of the pattern. They are the environment in which the pattern unfolds. This realization can reduce self-blame and restore clarity. It is also important to avoid oversimplification or demonization. Narcissistic traits develop as adaptations to early emotional environments that lacked consistent safety, validation, or emotional attunement. The nervous system learned to survive through external regulation rather than internal integration. While the behaviors can cause real harm, they originate from unresolved developmental patterns rather than deliberate cruelty in most cases. Compassion, however, does not require tolerating dysfunction or sacrificing one's own well-being. Healing for narcissistic individuals requires learning to regulate emotions internally, tolerate vulnerability, integrate shame, and build stable self-worth independent of external validation. This process is slow and often resisted because the existing patterns feel familiar and protective. Without deep therapeutic work and sustained motivation, the behaviors tend to persist. For those affected by narcissistic dynamics, the most powerful shift is reclaiming emotional sovereignty. Recognizing that intensity is not the same as intimacy, that validation is not the same as love, and that control is not the same as safety allows healthier relational choices. Nervous systems can relearn stability, boundaries can strengthen, self-trust can return, emotional clarity can replace confusion. Ultimately, the strange sexual habits of a narcissist reveal less about desire and more about regulation. They are not expressions of deep connection, but strategies the nervous system uses to manage internal instability. What looks like passion may be stimulation seeking. What looks like confidence may be avoidance of vulnerability. What looks like independence may be fear of emotional exposure. Seeing these patterns clearly empowers individuals to step out of the cycle rather than becoming consumed by it. When intimacy is grounded in mutual presence, emotional safety, and respect, it nourishes both nervous systems. When intimacy becomes a regulation tool, it depletes, confuses, and destabilizes. Understanding the difference protects emotional health, restores agency, and opens the door to relationships that are built not on intensity or control, but on genuine connection and psychological stability.